Who is the man willing to risk everything, even his life, to protect Jimin? And what dark truth hides behind an unshakable loyalty that never cracks, no matter how fierce the storm of threats? Are you truly ready to know this story? A story that may make you rethink the meaning of loyalty, sacrifice, and the thin line between courage and despair. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that like button, leave your thoughts and theories in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in the untold stories behind Jimin's world. The stories that never make it to official headlines, but live in the shadows just beyond the spotlight. In a world of flashing cameras, where every smile can turn into a headline and every move can be dissected for hidden meaning, there is one figure who always stands half a step behind Jimin. He is not just a shadow, not just a bodyguard, but the final wall that separates the idol from unseen threats. But what drives a person to face danger without hesitation, even if it means he might never make it home that night? Is it just a job? Or is there a far deeper, more personal vow, a silent promise that binds them with an invisible thread? The story begins on a cold night in Seoul, when a fine mist of rain fell like silver threads from the sky. Jimin had just finished a long rehearsal, his face still carrying traces of exhaustion mixed with unwavering focus. Outside the building, a small crowd was already waiting. Some were fans desperate for a glimpse. Others were strangers with unreadable eyes and no smile. That was when the Guardian stepped forward, shoulders slightly tense, his eyes scanning the scene like a radar, locking onto every movement. To the untrained eye, it was just part of the job, but those who truly watched could see something else: the subtle tension in his stance, the way his body positioned itself to block any possible path of danger, and the sharp, split-second glances into the crowd as if he could read minds. That night, one quick step forward saved Jimin from something that almost happened, something that never made the news, was never caught on camera, and is known only to the few who were there. But do you believe that some threats are deliberately hidden from the public? Threats too dangerous to reveal because they could spark panic or endanger more lives. Unofficial whispers suggest that threats to Jimin do not only come from strangers, but from deeper, more twisted politics within the entertainment industry itself. Here, the bodyguard's role becomes more than just physical protection. He becomes a psychological shield, an eye peering into the dark corners behind the glamorous curtain. There is one moment that has become legend among Jimin's closest circle. It happened late one night at an international airport, where human traffic flowed in a blur. Jimin walked calmly in the middle of his security team when, suddenly, a man broke into a sprint toward him, his hand moving in a way no one could read. In less than a heartbeat, the Guardian pivoted, intercepted the man, and in one fluid, almost invisible motion, shifted him into safety. Cameras captured fragments of the scene, but what truly happened in those seconds? Why did the man seem to reach for something inside his pocket? And why did every official report simply call it a minor disturbance from an overexcited fan? But not all threats come with a face. Sometimes they arrive as anonymous messages slipped backstage, or vague warnings hidden among hundreds of fan letters. That is when the Guardian moves like a shadow, checking every item, scanning every corner, ensuring that not even a scrap of paper escapes his attention. But what exactly did he find in some of those messages? Codes, symbols that meant nothing to the untrained eye. Was it a coincidence, or a message from someone who knew Jimin personally? You may wonder, why would someone risk their life for another person? The answer is rarely as simple as loyalty. Sometimes it's a debt of gratitude, or an unspoken emotional bond forged through years of standing on the same front line. Jimin, with his quiet empathy and warmth, is not just an artist to those closest to him. He is an anchor, a reason to keep standing when the world feels like it's falling apart. Yet behind all the bravery, there is a price. Not all wounds are visible. There are nights when the Guardian sits alone in an empty room, replaying the most dangerous moments in his head, asking himself the same haunting question: what if one day I fail? And here's where the story grows darker, because over time, the threats have not only come from outside, but from within the very industry meant to protect him. Some claim there were moments when Jimin's security was deliberately weakened, whether for budget reasons or strategic media control. But the Guardian stood firm, choosing to protect quietly, even if it meant going against official orders. What will happen if one day the threat returns, but this time, in a far deadlier form? Will the Guardians still be there in time? Or will there be a moment when a single second too late changes everything? This story is far from over. Every concert, every public appearance, every overseas trip is a new battlefield in the silent war between light and shadow. And in the middle of it all, there will always be one man standing still, silent but ready, willing to give everything, no matter the cost, even if the cost is his own life. The rain that night in Seoul never seemed to end. It tapped softly on the tinted windows of the black van as Jimin sat inside, his head resting lightly against the glass, his eyes half closed. The lights of the city blurred into golden streaks outside, but inside, the air was heavy. His guardian sat in the front passenger seat, saying nothing. He never did, unless it was necessary. Silence was his shield. It kept his thoughts his own, his mind free to analyze every detail of the world around them. To the unknowing, this silence might seem cold, but to Jimin, it was a comfort. It meant that the man watching over him was focused, not distracted. He had learned over the years that silence could be as protective as armor. Yet, there was something different in the way his guardian's eyes darted to the side. Mirrors that night, a restlessness, almost as if he had already seen the danger coming long before it arrived. 2 blocks away from the dorm, the van slowed at a red light. That was when it happened. A black sedan pulled up alongside them. The windows were tinted so dark they seemed to swallow the streetlights. For a moment, no one moved. And then, as if on cue, the sedan's window rolled down just enough for a hand to appear, holding something that gleamed faintly under the rain. The guardian moved before anyone else could react. In a single motion, he unfastened his seatbelt, pushed open the door, and stepped into the rain. The driver shouted something, but it was lost in the hiss of tires on wet asphalt. The guardian walked toward the sedan, his figure rigid, his steps measured, like a soldier approaching a line he could not retreat from. The object in the stranger's hand, it could have been anything, a phone, a camera, or something far worse. The light turned green. The sedan sped off, disappearing into the maze of streets. The guardian stood in the middle of the road for a moment, watching it vanish. When he finally returned to the van, his expression was unreadable. Jimin looked at him but didn't ask. He didn't need to. They both understood some things were better left unspoken, for safety's sake. That incident was never reported. Not in the tabloids, not even in the whispers that usually leaked online after unusual events. Perhaps because no one had filmed it, or perhaps because someone made sure it never reached the public. But for the Guardian, it was a reminder the threats were not only real, they were waiting for the perfect moment. A week later, the team was in Tokyo for a fan event. The atmosphere was light, the crowd cheerful, and the air filled with the kind of excitement only fans could bring. Yet the Guardian's eyes never softened. While the stage lights illuminated Jimin's smile, the shadows in the corners seemed to shift. He noticed a man standing near the emergency exit, not clapping, not cheering, just staring. He left his position at the side of the stage, for just a moment, enough to move closer to the exit. Without drawing attention, the man turned away as soon as their eyes met, but the Guardian caught a glimpse of something under his coat. Later, when the crowd dispersed, security found a folded piece of paper near that very spot. On it was a crude sketch not of Jimin, but of the stage layout, marked with red circles. The message was clear: we know where to strike. For days afterward, the Guardian barely slept. His routine became sharper, more precise. He began running drills with the rest of the team, rehearsing what to do if a threat came from the audience, from backstage, or even from within the event staff. Jimin, ever perceptive, noticed the extra tension. One evening, as they were walking back to the hotel from rehearsal, Jimin finally spoke. "You've been quieter than usual." The Guardian glanced at him. "You've been more tired than usual." Jimin smiled faintly. "We both have our burdens."